There will be times in your life that you'll need to stop waiting on the locals. I wrote on social media earlier that your locals won't give you your global. Many times that's true because a lot of them won't desire to provide that for you. And even if they did, ultimately your global will come from God. That's why we better trust God and not man. And I'm not saying that there aren't valuable lessons amongst the locals. I'm not saying that every local is a hater. That's not true by any means. There are people that can help you right in your proximity, probably right in your block, probably right around the corner, probably next door. I'm not saying that. But I said most time your next place and your next level in life won't come from the locals. Those who are far in your global, they don't know all of your local mess ups. They don't know all of your local failures. The ones that's happened, the ones that are happening, and the ones to come. So look, many times you won't get the local buy-in. Jesus is the greatest global that ever lived. And he went to his own, and his own refused him. And his own refused him. Jesus could only do a few miracles, heal a few sick folks amongst his own, while he was the great I am. So a lot of times, your next level and your next place won't come from the locals. Maybe that's why God said in Psalm 75 that promotion or elevation doesn't come from the north, south, east, or west. I may have the directions wrong or the spoken wrong, at least as far as chronological order. But he said, but promotion comes from above. God is the judge. He's the one that decides cases. He's the one that decides levels. He's the one that decides what justice and elevation and promotion is. God is the judge. He setteth up one and he pulleth down another. Look, some places that you're waiting for your aces, your roadies, your homies, your besties, and your ace boom coons, they either won't afford that place intentionally, or even if they have the mind and the will to do so, they can't provide that place. And many times the locals hinder us because we're wondering, we're not worried about being embarrassed 1,000 miles away from home. It's the locals. When you go in the barber shop and you fail, and they count how many times, that's the fourth, fifth time you've done that. When you go to church, and they say that's the fifth or sixth time you've done that. When they know all of your failures, while some are counting your blessings, naming them one by one, it's a lot of the locals that are counting your failures and keeping a good tab on them. They're naming them each. So your fear of the locals has stymied you from stepping into your next place, embarking into another run at success, or marching towards purpose in a totally different fashion. You can't allow the locals that much place. I'm not bashing where you're from. I'm not bashing the locals. But your global will come after you make some firm decisions that I won't allow any local heckling, any local jeering. I'm not depending on a local to get here or there. It's nice if they provide it, but ultimately to go global, you're going to need more than local help. So look, stop waiting on the locals. David, when it was time to pick a king, and Samuel came to Jesse's house, David wasn't even in the number. David wasn't even at the place, at the spot where they were to pick people. He said, is there another? We got this little joke over here singing psalms and keeping the sheep. He wasn't even in the mix. He wasn't even in the fray. He was somebody way out. But when the anointing oil was there, the anointing didn't flow until it found David's head. Look, stop waiting. All these rankings that people give locally. Here are the top 10 local hoopers, the top 10 local squallers, the top 10 local house records, the top 10 pastors, the top 10 teachers, the top 10 apostles, the top 10 evangelists, and the top 10 teachers. Even if you're not in that number, that's not where your next place will come from. You know, David wasn't even in the mix, in the count. Nobody ranked him. Nobody even, his own father didn't choose to invite him. But look, when God has his eyes on a man or a woman, it doesn't matter whether they even counted you in the number. When God has picked you, sometimes God has picked you to be picked on, to stand out for his purpose. So look, I'm telling you, stop worrying about what's going on in your own zip. Stop worrying about what goes on in your own area code. If God to call you to the nations, that's not going to be an old overnight thing. Yes, you're going to have to spend some time mixing it up with the locals. Yes, you're going to have to get some experience from the locals. But ultimately, before global ever comes your way, you know, the locals can take you so far. Global is something that has to come from God. God has to create the patterns. God has to create the path. God has to mold the moment and temper the tenor of the moment. God is ultimately in control of your global. So stop worrying. Stop having your blood pressure go high. Stop looking at what they're doing over there and over there. Because ultimately, your next place in God, your global, will come from God and not from the locals. Be blessed.